1,000 years ago, we thought Earth was flat. 200 years ago, we said they're never going to land on the moon.
Still people that believe the Earth is flat.
I have the best example for you. So the day before the Wright brothers flew, there was a New York Times article published saying how it would take more than 100 years for man to achieve flight. The day before the Wright brothers flew.
That's absurd. It's hubris.
Yeah.
So you guys can make fun of me, but one of the most interesting things of our time is not AI, right? Because AI is pretty cool, like AGI, Skynet,
Shakira.
killing us. Not Shakira either.
I was going to say women, but sure, if you want to specify.
It's extraterrestrials. Wayne wanted to talk about this. It's a very fun topic for me. There are a lot of whistleblowers right now that are saying not only do we have recovered craft, but biologics. And so there's a list of about 12 strong, at least in the United States, like an ex-rear admiral, David Grush, and multiple physicists now have come forward saying this. Like, do you guys, what, you're not in the world I am, because I've done some research in this.
You're not on my level.
Yeah, well, kind of, sort of, but
Our information came from movies. That's literally it.
maybe my level is diluted, or I'm delusional. Who knows? What do you guys think?
I have an opinion. Does that surprise you?
I'm watching.
Okay, I'm not a traditional believer in little green men. Okay, but as evidence-based is, like I talk religion, I'm evidence-based, and I don't see, like many people, evidence of creationism. Okay, as I don't see evidence, the same kind of evidence. In other words, one of the tenets I was brought up with was the Indian tradition is, if you don't see it with your eyes, don't believe it. In other words, don't take hearsay or secondhand evidence as proof of anything. So I don't have that evidence, and I know you, Tori, have done research and have looked up a lot of paperwork and that sort of thing. But my intellect tells me it's just impossible to actually have visitors from another world here. Yet there is evidence, but to me it's secondhand, thirdhand evidence that something is going on there. So my question is, okay, whether it's extraterrestrial from another planet, from an advanced technology that's living in the core of the Earth, whatever. My concern is, why can't somebody talk about this? Go ahead, yeah.
Well, I thought about it as you were saying it. Well, the reason behind the secretive part about it, or keeping it a secret, basically, is the result can be catastrophic. You're born in a world where mainly dominant by religious beliefs, and all of the religious belief goes toward the center of, like, Earth is the center of everything. We're the only living things and stuff, and they're closed-minded to any idea comes out of that box. What can you imagine for a second the amount of chaos? And that, just, by the way, this is hypothetical. I mean, as a bad thing of why didn't they bring it up to the surface already? Can you imagine the amount of chaos will happen around the world, and what kind of system will be demolished the moment they prove there is this kind of things going on around? So sometimes keeping stuff secret, even though logically they shouldn't, it might be for the greater good. If you ever watch a movie called The Da Vinci Code,
Yes.
they kept Jesus being undivine and the heritage, or like his living successors, or like, and there was somebody from his bloodline, a secret by the church, because what would that happen? And that was secret to that level. Now you're talking about the existence of a life outside of Earth. I mean, like, that's basically demolish, like, the chaos. It's unimaginable, because you have, even if we disagree on religions or stuff or belief system, some people say some beliefs are wrong or bad, but they are controlling, each one of these religions controlling a certain amount of group. You bring in an idea that will demolish all of these belief systems, chaos.
Maybe it's time.
See, that's true, but that's a suicidal thought from my perspective. But would it happen? We need more logical. No, not more logical.
I think you're entirely right. Like, imagine your entire belief system is based around being created in God's image. And then you find out there's other life that God could have created. Where's the proof that you are the one created in God's image and not them?
I have an answer for that. The creativity of the theological world will come up with an explanation.
Always.
Oh, yeah. What do you mean it's not Zeus peeing? It's condensation?
Well, or let's talk the genitalia of the great creator.
He gets it on, you know?
You must. With who? Anyway, it's...
But that's one of the reasons.
No, I understand, and I've heard that from many more educated people than we are. It doesn't hold water to me because my whole life I've been taught the truth shall set you free. Does that not apply here? Do we keep lying? And I say we. I don't even know what it is they know, and that's what's bothering me.
Yeah.
Is we've got unelected people in high places that have made the decision not to share this information with the very people that fund their organization.
Yeah.
And what's wrong with that picture?
Here's the thing, like, and this is the reality in my mind, that there are so many high-ranking officials that even one of these senators, I'm going to get his name wrong, Marco Rubio, right?
You got his name right.
And he said this. He said, okay, there is already over 40 witnesses, of which were firsthand to these reverse engineering of extraterrestrial craft that came forward to the Senate and the Inspector General. And Marco Rubio said, we have one of two things. Either it's true, we have reverse engineering, or we have a major problem with people with the highest clearance being mentally ill. Now, it's true that I believe things that I see, but I have never ran the physics experiments that have to do with certain things that I believe Neil deGrasse Tyson when he tells me. So because there's so much information out there, we kind of have to use hearsay. We trust people. But there is so much evidence that as I went and researched it, it is almost nonsensical to be anything else. The simplest explanation now that I can come up with is non-human intelligence. So, like, I'm just curious because, like, everyone doesn't know what happens after they die. That's one of those things that always makes me weird. Like, you just don't know for sure. You ask a pastor, and he'll be like, "Oh, he might be, oh yeah, I'm going to heaven." It's just like, do you know like exactly what's going to happen? Do you know like day 1, day 2? Yeah, like, but no one knows. But everyone before us has died, and it seems like this. It should. In my mind, everyone should stop what they're doing and research this. Shouldn't all scientists? Because everyone's gonna die.
What's the decomposition of the soul?
Yeah, shouldn't that be like the most researched topic? Because we all are gonna die. Mm-hmm. But for some reason, we're just like, oh, that's a question we'll never know.
I think one of the most fascinating things, like what you said, is most people have died. That's 13 to 14 billion people that have died in the entirety of human existence.
Yeah.
And there are 8 billion people alive right now. So almost one third of the entire human existence
that has ever existed
exists right now.
Which is interesting. And that's kind of how exponential population works. Mm-hmm. So yeah, 8 billion alive, 14 billion roughly, you said?
Yeah.
Dead.
And, I don't think it's absolutely impossible for extraterrestrial life to not exist. I think it has to exist because of how vast the universe is. The real question is, how would they get here? If they are here, how did they get here? And where did they come from?
Yeah.
And there's actually explanations from a theoretical standpoint as far as what's possible with time travel, wormhole travel.
Could we air drive?
Yeah.
I researched that this week. Very cool.
And so there's a lot of possibilities, but if you'd have told somebody we're going to send a man to the moon at the turn of the century, they'd say, well, maybe that's a possibility, but it'll never happen. I had a high school teacher that told me they weren't going to be able to send 3 men to the moon and bring them back alive.
Well, damn, was he wrong?
And yeah, not only was he wrong, he owes me $5.
Is he alive to give it to you?
No, he's not.
Yeah.
He copped out.
Sounds like you got grave robbed.
Yeah, I did. but back to that research on the afterlife. I don't remember a damn thing from before I was born.
Me either.
Does anyone?
There are some people that have they do regression. They do hypnosis regression to past lives.
Well, my partner is convinced that there is some form of reincarnation, and she can't give me an intellectual reason for that, but she can give me her personal experiences that she believes she has gone through, such as voices from her parents and things like that. I can explain that in a couple other ways as possibilities. I can't prove that any more than I can prove that it doesn't exist.
So, Mr. Wayne, do you think the idea of aliens, let's put it this way, is similar to the idea of religion when it's explain it? Basically, is like you have to believe in it. They try to give you a certain amount of evidence, but it's nothing you can actually have a hold or
that's an interesting thought, and I don't know that I believe one way or the other in that, other than coming back again to why hasn't something been published on this? Do you know the story of Bob Lazar?
Yes, I'm very familiar.
Do either of you know who Bob Lazar is?
No.
He put Area 51 on the map. He came out in 90s, and he pretty much said, I worked at a building called S4. There's this element called 117 or whatever, 115. And he went through, he said a lot of these things. He was not the only whistleblower.
That's right.
There's another guy that was from NASA, then he said the same thing. What the craziest thing about this, you start researching it, and you're like, well, something this big should have leaked by now. There are leaks everywhere, but the ontological shock, the military used this tactic. It can't be, therefore it isn't, right? And it's just too grandiose. You can be overtly, it's like, you're not going to believe the truth. We're reverse engineering craft. We're using telepathy. People aren't going to believe you. They're going to think you're crazy. And David Grush, he brought 40 whistleblowers, 40 first-hand witnesses and whatever to the Congress and Inspector General, and the Inspector General stated that his claim was legitimate and urgent. And so in 2 weeks, he's going to be coming out with another statement of his first-hand knowledge on this. So the reason I talk about this is not to have a sensational topic it's more of that I have gone through this existential dread that this is likely. Mm-hmm. This is like a flip of the coin. And the Drake equations are how many civilizations exist with us. Mm-hmm. So I'm not trying to convince you by saying this. I'm just trying to say we're all going to have some serious conversations if this turns out to be true.
So that's true. I have two things, one against each other, by the way. So one with, one against. The first one is, when it comes to this kind of topic, I can't just say it will never happen. I'm not that person. I will say I don't have a firm grasp on it right now, like Mr. Wayne is saying. But would it happen? Maybe, because 1,000 years ago we thought Earth was flat. 200 years ago, we said they're never going to land on the moon.
Still people that believe the Earth is flat.
I have the best example for you.
Or Earth is only 6 or 10,000 years old, which and dinosaur is a fake thing. So
I have the best example for you. So the day before the Wright brothers flew, there was a New York Times article published saying how it would take more than 100 years for man to achieve flight. The day before the Wright brothers flew.
Yeah.
But this is how...
I think I've seen that.
Yeah.
But that's absurd. It's hubris.
Yeah.
Jump in.
But this is exactly prove my point. You believe in the system or something your entire life or for a long time, and suddenly in 1 second or 1 day, somebody comes and prove it completely wrong, right? So that's one aspect. So that's basically supportive of your claim. Or like, what do you believe in? Which I'm like, I like this kind of stuff, you know? I add more spices to the thing.
Yeah.
The other side of it, why now? We've been alive for a long time. Why this thing
I have an
become...
answer.
I do
answer.
too.
You
I
know
want to
what?
hear Tori's
So
first.
check this out. Why does every religion talk about beings
I know what you're
from
gonna
the
mention there.
heavens? Every religion talks about battles in the heavens, beings of the heavens, coming down and saying things to men. Every religion. So every historical record of every society has talked about beings from the heavens interacting with beings on the earth.
But Tori,
So like isn't that interesting?
But Tori, that's what I mentioned earlier when I said that's going to be catastrophic, because right now you're referring to any higher entity that any religion on earth described these days
Yeah.
as an alien. And probably, which I like this idea, that's why they keeping this thing a secret for the best of the general population. Because if you told Christian or Muslims or Buddhism gods, your god is an alien. You just gave it a different name with superpower, but he was just simply a more advanced version of you. And this earth was a petri dish, and they implement life on it, and they just watch it grow. Yes, they have their own wars.
Is that any different from saying God is Arabic, since all Abrahamic religions start it in the...
Yeah.
Well, there's another angle on this. Yeah. And that is,
Getting attacked from both sides. Okay.
no. Let me just say, you were just arguing two sides of one point, right?
Yeah.
You've learned well, my son.
But I'd actually like to bring in why they would bring it up now. There's a lot of freaking chaos in the news. It'll just get flushed under everything else. Like, it would take a lot of people in pretty powerful places to actually bring that news right up and actually spread it to the general population. Because, yeah, there are podcasts that might talk about this exact same thing, but that's reaching a small population. That's not going to reach the 40% that's above the age of 60.
But if it's a real thing, which I think it is, let's just give it a percentage of being 10% real. I think it's worth talking about.
Of course.
Oh, yeah.
Well,
yeah.
it's been talked about for hundreds of years. And people, and I can't remember for the life of me the astronomers or the scientists that began to reveal these things, which just tore the ecumenical world apart. And that is, was it Copernicus or Newton? Who was it that discovered the Earth was not the center of the universe?
I think it's Copernicus.
Yeah, it was Copernicus.
Okay.
Didn't they kill him?
Yeah.
Yeah.
They put him in prison, and I saw the documentary about
Yeah.
Neil deGrasse Tyson when they called the Cosmos. He talked
Yeah.
about that guy.
Yeah. Well, there's several other events, and the biggest group involved in all of these punishments for heresy was the Roman Catholic diocese, and probably the most
Catholic.
Typical.
well. Let's come on. That's really what I think. But I was really on my way to coming up with a much better way of
We're gonna
explaining.
get shut down earlier than I thought.
Yeah, no, I see the history of the Roman Catholic is that they're actually the power behind the king. From those times, they've always been a very powerful.
So David
group.
Grush actually said that because he submitted something called a DOPSAR. So a DOPSAR goes to the Department of Defense, and they approve whether or not you could publish things in books or talk about them. So he went through and got a DOPSAR. And what he can talk about is the 1933 UFO crash that happened in Italy. And he claims, right, that the Vatican actually knows about this. And they're the ones that clued in the United States about it after, I believe it was World War One. I don't think it was World War II. And so Mussolini and all that stuff. So the Catholic Church has come out and said, we believe that God loves all of his children, whether they're born on this earth or not. So they've kind of paved the way. But
They start adding stuff to the book, huh?
David Grush and other people
Later.
have said that people have been killed keeping this secret because it's the same. Have you seen Oppenheimer?
No, I
The
have not.
same rules that applied to the Manhattan Project are applied to alien UFO tech, supposedly. So why now? I think people are finally fed up. I don't think there's a ruler over this. It's probably too compartmentalized. My personal opinion is that no one is overseeing it. They're not getting nearly as much done from the reverse engineering. So now is the time that the insiders are finally like, we're fed up. Humanity should know about this. We've known about it for 100 years. How long did it take Copernicus for everyone to actually agree that
two or 300 years. I mean, it was an enormous amount of time, and there was a lot of controversy, and it wasn't that there's many other people of science in the day that were ostracized, silenced.
doctors saying to wash your hands before giving birth?
And Dr. Gregor Mendel, the father of genetics, he was
One of the
actually
bees, yep.
yeah he
Beans.
the peas.
Yeah, bees, yeah.
He was actually part of a friar, and that's where he grew his peas and discovered like, oh, these traits are passed on by these, and when these mix, this happens. And the church burnt most of his documents. The only reason we even know about his investigations now is because one notebook survived.
That's true. We studied that even back home. Like this guy, I mean, you're always going to have this outlier. No matter, this is I guess the beauty of humanity. You try to control the uncontrollable. Even if you have a group of people, very conservative, very religious, very everything. Sir Isaac Newton is one of a perfect example.
That's the other one I was trying to think of.
And he made a god because your brain, I mean, that's in my opinion, is far more advanced than the whole cosmos together. So you're trying to control it, that's not going to work. So usually this, and calling them a whistleblower basically is a disadvantage. No, they are way far beyond that. It's just like, it can't handle it. Like, I need to break out of that thing. And by the way, answering your question of like, why now? There is an Egyptian documentary, and I saw it when I was in Damascus. You guys probably heard when the pyramids were built, and they were like fascinated by the location and pinpoint how this thing is directly to the star when they align and things. So answering why now, in that documentary, I think if I remember correctly, what I heard is like Earth location or in the universe or whatever. That's just one theory. Is so far away and then like not very advanced location, that's a possibility aliens or like this different life form will come to us is very unlikely. It happened before, maybe by a mistake or something. Similar thing if the country Algeria or Mauritania, you might heard of it. Do you know anything about it? No. Hardly nothing. And on the same hand, Will Smith slapped that other dude in the Oscar and think
everybody knows.
You know, it's like, so that country or that location is very primitive and it's like nobody cares, doesn't get attention. Same thing with this area. So when they say why they never show up, why they don't come, you're giving yourself maybe a much higher value than what you are to this higher entities or like alien life form. That's just one possibility. They were discussing it in this. So they like, you're still thinking like you are here as the main or the center of the universe and aliens should come and contact you more often than they should. I'm like, for some reason.
They see us like we see ants.
Yeah, exactly.
That makes a lot more sense. Yeah.
And again, as Neil deGrasse Tyson says, this is like we have people here at the universities doing spherical trigonometry and very advanced mathematics. And we all look at them like they're such a brilliant person. And we're only like 1% away from being chimps on the intelligence scale. And he said, so can you imagine if there's someone capable, there is a group, an entity or whatever, capable of coming here, they would think, well, the most intelligent person on this planet does what little Timmy does here in our world, that they put his work up on the refrigerator and say, "Look what little Timmy did in kindergarten this morning," and that's a good story from. He's got a lot of those.
Yeah.
But it's so yeah. What would be the interest in here? Is it strategic? Is it? I don't think that's important
So,
on whether
human
they
and
find
farm.
us as.
Yeah, Tori,
It's
this is
interesting.
for you too. What he said.
Yeah.
If and I'm gonna go right now against. I'm gonna be
Yeah,
complete
go
bar.
ahead.
If it truly exists and it's arrived on Earth, the amount of technology and things that require these things to happen, and us, what do we have them contain in cells, or do we have only a method of communication with them? And I would like to say it's only a method of communication, because if there is a fact that there is different life forms out there and they reach Earth, I think the advanced level that they reach, if they come here, you would not lay a finger on that creature. If you are hardly reached the moon after all of this technology and advancement, and you barely can make it to moon, or Elon Musk can launch 17 rockets and one of them survive or two of them survive, and then you have something coming based on our telescopes when we can see the observable universe, and they come probably from beyond that, and you just say, "Oh yeah, we got them in Area 51 contained." I'm like,
yeah. So I'll give you guys the option. There's a story that Tucker Carlson just recently had David Grush on his podcast. I don't know who Tucker Carlson is. I know he's
He's
the guy
obsessed
from
with the
Fox
quantum.
News?
Yeah, from Fox News.
"Oh my
formerly,
God, how did that guy get in this topic?"
Formerly from Fox News.
No. What I'm telling you, and I'm telling the audience too, is that the revelations that will happen this next year are going to make a lot of people crap their pants. Because from what I'm hearing in my investigative work is that the president, before the year's end, will announce non-human intelligence exists in 2024. Like that's what I'm getting. So the reason for me bringing this up is a little bit self-serving, but also it's kind of more of a public service.
Hold on, that's real?
Yeah, I'm not joking. Like this year, 2024, the president will most likely. Daniel Sheehan is a lawyer that helped with the Watergate scandal, right? He also helped in the Iran-Contra dealings. And he was also the whistleblower Lou Elizondo's lawyer, who was the first whistleblower in the 2017 for UFOs. He is now fighting disclosure. The same person that found out that the Iran-Contra was a illegal activity going on is now fighting for disclosure. So people that are being brought into this topic are not UFO people. They're now normal people that are like, oh, yeah, there is something here. So, like, I don't think a lot of people realize the gravity of the situation. Like, no. Like, you better buckle up, because if you are mentally have some issues, you better buckle up.
I'm
gonna make
excited
it-
about this, by
Well,
the way.
I'm
The
gonna
amount
make
of
it-
drama of this thing. By the way, if this truly happened, I'm taking everybody to Raising Cane.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Awesome.
absolutely. I'm so.
do they have pork sandwiches?
So,
Why you have to?
But I have a tiny sidebar. Tucker Carlson, ever since he left Fox News, he has had a lot less hot takes, and it's been hilarious. Like he's started to say much more reasonable things.
okay.
he still makes the faces though.
Oh, well, yeah. That's kind of his trademark.
Yeah. Well, I would like to add, before we get too far away from this part of the conversation, what worries me about the ifs, what if there is contact, and the reverse engineering. How many countries are in on reverse engineering to get there first?
Germany. They'll over reverse engineer it.
They're pretty good at that.
well,
Have you seen
Werner von
BMWs?
Braun, that came from, the whole Project Paperclip, was bringing all over the people that were Nazis to NASA. So
Right.
NASA was founded by Nazis. Like,
Right.
we know this. This isn't a conspiracy.
So was Disney.
But Werner von Braun.
Hold on. What? Why? Okay.
And then a lot of people in Argentina, there's actually a whole little Nazi camp there.
Yeah.
But so Werner von Braun also said some interesting stuff. The ex-head of Israeli defense said that aliens exist. Ex-Prime Minister of Defense of Canada as well. It's kind of interesting stuff. But Yeah, yeah.
So whose side are they on?
So there's multiple companies. So they believe, or multiple countries. They believe about 5.
This is about business.
China. Yeah, Russia, China. So supposedly David Grush said this in one of his interviews, that one of the things in the 70s that was meant for the Cold War specifically addresses unidentified or UFOs, right? And it was actually so that way we didn't kill each other based off of the UFOs. So yeah, I don't know. And I think if this is true that the United States have been reverse engineering, they've done a psychological warfare against the American people. But you have to remember in 52, all those 9 craft were above the White House. And a lot of people say, well, how come they didn't come to the White House? And in 1952, they did. They had all this spotlights. They were even firing at them.
By the way, Tori, if this truly exists and come to realization, I'm really excited about if, like I said, that's hypothetically. Because for maybe a reason you guys, I don't know if you thought about or not, but I mentioned before I came from a minority religion, right? And my option to get married are very slim. If this thing happened, my option just get widening more and more. So
yeah, this could be.
I am buying cognac from Raising Cane to everybody.
Yeah. But I know I sound kind of like mentally ill or whatever, but I don't mind. I don't mind because I like being a scapegoat in a positive way. Like people can make fun of me.
I like acting crazy.
Yeah. I like being crazy.
Crazy. I was crazy once. They put me in a room with rats. Rats make me crazy.
Yeah.
Crazy. I was crazy once.
And
We have-
I'm still there.
we,
I'm still there.
we have unbelievable conversations across the fence.
Yeah.
But Tori, this is that's your belief. This is what, like I said, everybody's interested in something, and it's actually, I like when people are interested in this kind of stuff because it has a depth. It pushes them to go for more information. And it's like you're not wasting your time. And it's a good topic to talk about, honestly. And if right now you scared me, it's like by 2024 they will come and say something about it. I'm like,
Yeah.
So this is next year, Tori?
Yeah. So
Not yet this year, but in the year 24 or
yeah. So
2024.
January, there's a couple of people in that supposedly are in that world. I don't pay attention to a lot of it because a lot of it is BS, right? So I just skim the surface. I only have limited time. But in between February and June, or January and June of 2024, most people think the president of the United States will say we have recovered craft from non-human intelligence.
how convenient.
How convenient that our president is 80-some years old.
Well, what's more, it's even more convenient that it's an election year.
Yeah.
yeah.
So
Yeah.
how does that play into
So that
all
was
this?
actually in the UAPDAA, which is the actual piece of legislature that the Senate passed, that the 3 or 4 people in the House actually blocked the eminent domain for the UFO stuff. In the bill had non-human technology, like non-human intelligence. So that got partially gutted, but some of it got passed. So this bill doesn't have teeth, but things in law are moving and shaking. So
from what I've heard that you've talked about today and the way things are phrased, it doesn't necessarily mean we have boots on the ground aliens on this planet, but we have evidence of out of this world technology.
So David Grush specifically said, we have biologics
Okay.
and the pilots of the craft. Not all craft had pilots. And we have the craft itself. Then there's a guy named Gary Nolan, who is a geneticist. He is actually a part of something called the Soul Foundation. He's come out and said that, yeah, non-human intelligence kind of exists. He has a little bit of stuff. Rear Admiral just came out 2 days ago and says, yeah, we have been interacting with non-human intelligence. Rear Admiral of the Navy, retired.
Interacting?
We have been
Using
interacting.
American Sign Language.
Yeah. With non-human intelligence, and the public needs to know at least that much. Like, people are starting to, like, yeah. So what's interesting is that, like, I'm like not necessarily sold or whatever. I don't even know what this reality is. Like, my biggest question is, what is truth? We as a society cannot even agree on what truth is. Closest thing we have is the scientific method. So these are what keep me up at night, because I'm like a purpose-driven person. I want to know, okay, what is my role? How can I be useful to my community? And I feel like I have to be doing something. So that's why I do my open muscle stuff that you guys know about. But the really mind screw is the alien stuff, because it's pretty serious. Like, don't take my word for it. Go research it yourself. I won't even point you in the direction. You do your own, find out whatever.
Well,
It's weird.
The good thing for me is you corroborate things I've heard in other places. So maybe you've heard the same things, but when you start hearing people say they've read this, they've read that, you've read similar things, if not the same things, nobody's being shut down or censored. That I know of.
Yes.
And
That you know of.
that I know of, correct. And I'm anxious to see anything that explains everything from
Been said or talked about.
been
so far.
said or talked about
Yeah.
so far. Beginning for me, my first exposure to this concept is the place in New Mexico where the
Area 51?
no
It's a town.
Yeah.
Skinwalker Ranch?
No, it's a town. It's a town.
It starts with an R.
Cancun.
No.
Rio de Janeiro.
No, I was there. The street lamps all look like alien heads. It was
Roswell.
Roswell, yes.
Thank you. You were right. It does begin with an R.
Yeah.
Okay,
Gotcha.
For me, it all began in Roswell, and not from visiting there. I visited there because I was close and it sounded like an interesting place, and it is. But and I went through the museum, and they have a recreation of the life forms that they found deceased in that crash, and the cover-up story and the newspapers and all that kind of stuff. Well, that is very interesting, but that was my first exposure to it, and I don't know. I just want to, as a American taxpayer that supports the people that are keeping this information away from me,
Yeah.
I'd just like to know.
Why did they kept it away?
Right.
That's what I was gonna ask that actually. I'm like, if they really gonna come up and say something like this, what is their excuse to hide this information? Because
It's the
like
excuse you used. It's going to cause mass panic.
But if they gonna mention it, here goes the point. Because if it's really gonna cause mass panic, then they shouldn't even done it in the first place. So they cannot use this as a logical way to say it. Why now?
It is a cognitive dissonance. I agree.
Well, politics are not politics. Politicians are not logical. They're
Do you think I'm gonna disagree
well,
with that?
they're logical within their world of how to get reelected, how to retain power, how to control people in the most favorable way to them and their party. That's my belief.
Yeah.
Oh, by the way, Tori, even if they mention this by the year 2024, if they just mention it, I'm going to still require a lot
Yes.
of...
And that's what
evidence.
Carl Sagan
Yes.
says. Carl Sagan says extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence.
Yeah, like
Right.
when they talk about dinosaurs and they show me bone, and I'm like,
Exactly.
yep, that A plus B,
So this is how I don't listen to a lot of the BS, because if you try to find information on this, you're going to find a wide
There
variety.
are crackpots.
There are crackpots. So it's a waste of time. So I kind of skim the surface. I read interesting books by people that I seem respectful. But when I'm kind of done doing that, I truly don't know, And so I try to make sure that I don't engross myself in this topic, but prima facie, like there is enough evidence supported, and even Michio Kaku has said this. He said the burden of proof used to be on the observers of the UFOs. He himself came out, physicist, that the burden of proof is on the government now. Science has seen too many of these things. Lou Elizondo talks about the 5 observables of the UAPs or the UFOs. And so like there's data. So it's an interesting time to be alive. We might be in one of these revolutions, but that's aside from AI, aside from the fact that we're technologically advanced and trying to navigate what social media is or what is a conversation, you know what I mean? It's such a crazy time to be alive.
By the way, up till this point, my total belief of aliens, life forms, is the fact they found, I think when I read or saw documentaries, some kind of bacteria on Mars. They found, I forgot the name of that creature. It's very, very small. It has like 8 arms and can survive up to like...
Tardigrade.
Yeah, that's the one. And it can go, they found it in space. It can
Meteors.
everything. And I'm like, but that's, as a life form outside of Earth, that's my only 2 things probably that I believe, they exist so far that I can have, or like not can
Well,
have, I have
What
evidence.
if there
that
is
exist.
And that's the
entire
foundation.
horror game based around tardigrades?
And
There is.
Prey.
Oh, okay.
Oh,
I
yeah.
haven't seen that.
It's an older video game. I can't remember who made it, but it was pretty big for a short time. Prey. And you are on a spaceship, and you are tasked with just surviving and leaving. And it is a big story-driven game with several different endings.
Huh.
And I never finished it, but I played a decent bit of it. And those things are horrifying. There is a specific creature that is just question mark.
Yeah. They call it a water bear, I guess. Is its
Oh yeah, that's the
other
other name for it basically. But like the survival, like
They dehydrate themselves. and
yeah,
like-
that thing is almost close to be impossible to kill. I'm
Yeah.
like, you can fight it on a volcano erupting, and I'm like, oh, what is that thing? Or like even in Antarctica, it
unaffected
doesn't
by
need
radiation.
oxygen, doesn't need air, doesn't need specific heat, doesn't need anything.
And that's one of the theories on how life started?
Started?
on this planet.
It's called panspermia.
Yeah,
Yeah, so
panspermia,
when
right.
it just carries, but also Kyrgyzstan, which is a really cool YouTube channel.
Oh yeah,
that
I
shows
love
it.
watching their stuff.
Yeah, me too. They had this great video on life, and one of the things that they talked about is that the complexity of the first organism, even bacteria, seems too great to have only happened on Earth. So there's a theory that in eons from panspermia to panspermia has developed the DNA that by the time the first, bacteria hit Earth, it had already existed for billions of years, because they're saying that even the simplest of life forms is like a complete unit. It can replicate itself. So it's kind of interesting.
And,
so life might be more abundant. And this theory is called the dark forest, I believe. Or is it, dark kingdom. It means there's a kingdom of life forms that we know nothing about. Like they could actually be nebulas. And somehow, or the sun could be a...
By the way, I know where I stand if alien life form gets proven next year and stuff. For me, any book beside the physics book, I'm in denial. I'm in reject off at that point. Any certain kind of document beside 1 + 1 is 2, physics.
Yeah.
Logic.
Well, yeah, because that's already human fabricated.
Yeah, but that thing needs to burn.
Let me blow your mind. You haven't recognized alternate universes with different physics.
Okay, can I have the only book now? Can I have at least one? Okay, you can take it. I'll stick with the Kite Runner at this point.
Yeah, like how there's a 1 in a trillion chance that when I throw my hand on this table right now, it'll go straight through.
Yeah.
Just because all atoms are mostly space.
Yeah.
Well, and there was a very smart physicist somebody asked him a question about multiple universes, and he's just like, so every decision you make to close the lid of this laptop or not, when you make that decision, there's 2 universes branched, but everything is split into 2, so it's half the energy, half the mass, right? It really...
The thing is,
How would you notice?
that implies that either one person has all the power to create different universes via choices, or that every single person in existence, even other life forms like bacteria, because they could still make decisions, that implies that every single life form has the power to completely split off and make a different universe.
So I guess that's where quantum mechanics are kind of interesting, because
Probabilities.
and the observation, because like the human mind actually collapses wave functions. So we know this. So this is even crazier than the double slit experiment. You guys know about the double slit experiment, right?
Yes.
How it produces like a wave pattern on the other side, even though only one photon is being emitted at a time. But did you know this, that if you put a barrier, this is the same experiment,
I think I saw what you mentioned.
and two sensors, right? And then you have the emitter and there's a barrier in between. So it's the right one or the left one. It's like a coin flip, right? But if you turn off one of the sensors, the one that's turned on will every time
Goes to it.
Yeah. And then you turn that one off and turn on the other one, it's every time this one.
But when they're both on, it goes back and forth.
And that's part of the collapsing of the wave. So like whenever we measure something, we're absorbing that energy. We can't passively observe anything.
You're part of the measurement.
Yeah. So
You're part of the measurement.
Didn't they
are
call
part of
this
the
the
measurement.
butterfly effect? Anything has some kind of effect on something, so you cannot just...
Someone just died in Malaysia.
Physics.
because you did that.
Yeah.
That was written in the book Physics
brought him
for
back to life.
Simpletons.
Physics for for dummies.
Yeah,
That's the book.
Physics for Dummies, the butterfly effect. I like that.
But I'm serious. Like,
So
if
thanks
that's
for
it, yeah.
entertaining my crazy.
Oh no, time, man.
Conjecture.
I love entertaining crazy.
That's the best time. But like,
It's a problem with my love life.
Oh
yeah.
boy, oh boy.
Yeah. There's a saying about that, but
Well, I'd like to.
I think I know which one you're talking about.
okay. It doesn't need to be said.
Yeah, we all know.
Grippy socks.
In my closing statement on the announcement, the proclamation, the definitive decision on whether there are alien life forms, or in a life form doesn't necessarily mean a being. Biological doesn't necessarily mean a thinking, reacting being. So, so we're going to get surprised, whatever is revealed. But my last thought on all that is, long term, I don't see how you can go wrong on the truth, whatever the truth is. And you've got countries, nations, governments that can bend, fold, mutilate, trample on, change the facts into alternate facts, and that's just us as human beings and governments. But I'd really like the truth.
Well said, Wayne. I couldn't have said it better. That is Commodores of Chaos, Clutch. That is a small group. We get together because we are part of a think tank that we get together early on Saturdays.
well, my name is Yaya, or if I say it correctly, is Yahya. And it was a pleasure doing, what is this, the second official? Yep, this is the second official setting that we have. Please, for our viewers, I hope you know this is not about aliens specifically. Every episode will be something different. We go from politics, religion, aliens, apparently Raising Cain today, jumped in a little bit. So yeah.
Well, I think I've said my piece. This is Wayne, and you now know what I believe. And thank you for listening to us today. We'll try to keep coming back with some more interesting things. And with that, I'll pass it off to Jackson.
I'm Jackson. It is quite enjoyable having these conversations. It is too bad that we didn't get to the question on whether or not God's genitalia had anything to do with this, or if the aliens have similar reproductive systems as us,
Next episode.
Okay,
episode.
just to jump really quickly on that. We have an answer about this, by the way, and I think the Greek answer it, where Kronos, butcher that thing, and that's how the creation comes. We're all out of his. Yeah.
Oh, Gaia.
Or, yeah, oh yeah.
Oh, Kronos.
Oh, Aphrodite. For those who knows the Greek mythology, you know what I'm talking about.
Love Greek mythology.
And I'm Tori. I try to be the scapegoat and bring up the crazy ideas. I just want to thank you for watching. Please hit the like or subscribe. We'll be talking multiple times about multiple subjects. Please leave a comment telling us what you think of this alien phenomenon and the genitalia of said the deities. But yeah, if you have a question or comment, please leave it. And next episode, we will talk about it. Till next time.
Thank you.
Thanks.